Carl, and welcome again to 330, the television show where we give local builders 30 days and $3,000 to showcase their talents. Today is a very special day because today we're at my house and we have a local builder in my backyard that's going to build my children a fort. They have 30 days and $3,000 to dream up any fort that they can imagine. But let's not get ahead of ourselves because today is just the day that they will just be laying the foundation. Hey, let's go check out and see what's going on, shall we? I am so excited to see what's going on in my backyard today. Again, today is just the foundation, but it'll give you an idea of how great and how big this project really can be.
Hey, it's done.
It's done. We are here with Dan the Builder.
Handy Dan Dodson.
Dan the Builder.
Handy Dan.
Handy Dan. Dan, you, even though you had $3,000 in 30 days to build the fort, you actually built the fort in one day.
Well, and listen, like I was telling you, I misunderstood. I thought the 330 stood for 3 hours and $30, you know, but under those circumstances, I think I built a pretty good fort here, you know, and actually had enough left over that I got me some Taco Bell and a Gatorade.
Good for you, Dan. And I see with the time that you had, you went ahead and you built a little fence here, huh?
Well, yeah, I thought you might have some ponies or something.
Ponies? No, Dan, we don't have any ponies. No. Okay, great.
I could fix that. I was thinking about putting a gate there anyway, but hey, how about this fort, right? I mean, with the time allotted and the money, I think I did a pretty good job for your kiddos. I think they're gonna enjoy it. I actually built them a little reading nook right here, you know, in case they want to read their Henry Potter books and whatnot. I can fix that.
Alrighty, Dan.
Handy Dan.
It seems like you got the slide, but you've added something to it.
Yeah, I created these. I call them slide stoppers.
You slide stoppers.
Yeah, well, if you have a hefty kid or two that stops them from, you know,
hitting the fence you made right there.
Yeah, you don't want to break a pinky or something.
That is very medieval, Dan.
Well, that's just general physics.
All right, that's good. Well, it seems sturdy enough. Okay, all right.
I can fix that.
Okay, that'd be great. Well, here's something positive. You have built a climbing rock wall.
Yeah.
And those are real rocks there, Dan?
Nothing but the best, Clark.
It's Carl. All right, I'm just gonna climb on up here and test it out up there, all right?
Yep. Permission to board, El Capitan.
Here we go.
I can fix that.
Well, this is a first on 330. Dan the Builder.
Handy Dan.
Handy Dan is basically...
I can fix that.
Dan, please, just come down. This is sand. Dan, can you explain this to me?
Yeah, that's your foundation, boss man.
The foundation is made out of sand!
Well, technically, it's a floating slab on sandy lomas.
That's why it sways, Dan!
No, not that so it can withstand an earthquake.
This thing couldn't withstand an earthquake. This thing couldn't withstand a light rain. It couldn't even withhold my 4th grade son!
Well, he is kind of husky.
You built the fort on sand, Dan! The foundation is everything!
Don't keep pushing that, you're gonna break it!
Ah!
I can fix that.
So the question there is asked, what are you building your life on? Now I want to start off with the gospel reading from Mark, and then I'm going to move into James. But in Mark, it's talking about the disciples, and they're arguing about who was first among them. I mean, that's something typical. I think that even we would sometimes argue that amongst ourselves, like who's going to win the award? Right? Who's going to be the first one? Who's going to win the race? I mean, that's what this world really prizes and really looks at is who is it that's first? Well, see, the problem is they were building their foundation. The disciples were building their foundation on the world, or on, I'm going to say, worldly wisdom. And they're not building their foundation on godly wisdom, because godly wisdom is totally different from what the world would have. They are learning from Jesus that Jesus is going to suffer and die and be raised again. This is not the Messiah that they envision. They envision a Messiah who's going to go in with guns blazing and is going to free them from their oppressor. And so they have this idea that is really this worldly idea of who the Messiah is, and they're having a hard time switching that idea to who Jesus really is in this as well. So today we're going to take a look at who are you building, what are you building your life on? And so we're looking at wisdom in James. And the first chapter of James, now today's text was from the third chapter. The first chapter in James says this: if any of you is lacking in wisdom, ask God, who gives to all generously and ungrudgingly, and it will be given to you. Now we can read that, but unless we understand what wisdom is in the book of James, we're not going to get it right. In fact, we look at wisdom from a worldly point of view. James is looking at wisdom from a godly point of view. And so today, taking a look at wisdom and what wisdom means for us. In the third chapter of James, there are two kinds of wisdom. There's wisdom from below, there's wisdom from the world, and there's wisdom from above, and it's wisdom from God. I'm on this. I just have to check now and then to make sure I'm on the right slide and what I'm saying matches what's up there. So the question then is not only what will you build your foundation on, or what is your foundation, but what kind of wisdom will you follow according to the book of James? The characteristics of earthly wisdom. This is spelled out in James 3. If you listened to when Polly read James today, this comes straight from the book of James. In James, it says that earthly wisdom is envious. Envy is jealousy of what others have. So earthly wisdom, we are tending to look at others and not at ourselves. But if we look at what others have, you know what? We're even breaking we're breaking one of the 10 commandments, because it says you shall not what? Covet. You shall not want what your neighbor has. And so envy is one of them. Selfishness is another characteristic of worldly wisdom. And selfishness is seeking to benefit, of course, yourself, right? It's always looking at what you need, what you want, what is going to benefit you. Being boastful is also a characteristic of worldly wisdom, and being boastful is really being pretentious. It's showing excessive pride in what you can do or not do. That's being boastful. You want to make sure that people understand your achievements. You want to make sure that people understand what possessions you have, and you want to make sure that people understand what abilities you have. And so boastful people will tell you, we all know people like that, right? Who tell you what it is that they have. And the fourth characteristic of worldly wisdom is untruthful. You're willing to distort the truth no matter what it takes to get what you want. All right? Now, I want to point this out to you. Notice that the characteristics of wisdom from below: envious, you're jealous of what I am jealous of what others have, right? Selfishness is I am seeking to benefit myself. Boastfulness is I have the need to tell you what it is I can do, what I have, what my abilities are. Untruthfulness is that I am willing to skew the truth in order to get what I want. Look at the main focus on worldly wisdom. What's the main focus on worldly wisdom? Right, it's self. Self is always the focus on worldly wisdom. And James, this is what James is talking about. James is talking about how do we live in community? Well, if you live in community, you can't always be looking at what you can get. There's more to it, because there are results, right? There's always, every action has a reaction. So every one of these things has a result to it. The result of worldly wisdom is chaos. Have any of you ever had your mind going like that? Anybody? You know when mine does? When I lay down to sleep. Then suddenly I remember everything of the day, but oddly enough, it's not just remembering things of the day. I can remember things from 40 years ago, right? So that chaos is created when all I'm doing is looking for self, because that makes me believe that what? I'm in control, right? And if I believe that I'm in control, then all of these things are going to process through my mind because I've got to fix them. I've got to figure out how to do them. I. Now, if we look at worldly wisdom, it also creates a wickedness. Self-centeredness is really the basis of sin. You know, how do we spell the word sin? S-I-N, right? And I always remind myself of this. I am always in the middle of sin, correct? If you spell sin, I is always there in the middle. Selfishness, pride, envy, all of those things are worldly wisdom. They're ways that we try to gain control over what we believe we need, we want, and so we have chaos and wickedness. But then there's the wisdom that comes from above. The wisdom that comes from above is first pure. Pure in that it's not mixed with anything, right? It's not mixed. That's what purity means. It's not mixed with anything. There's nothing that is going to pollute the purity of wisdom from above. It's peaceable. Peaceable means that when we're looking for peace, we're always looking at what does the community need, right? Peace can't happen if I'm always looking at myself. Peace can only happen if we look at what's going on in community or in the world around us, and we fight for that peace and we fight for that freedom for others. A third one is gentleness. And gentleness is always showing respect and showing others that we look at them and recognize that they are a part of God's kingdom, God's world, as much as we are. The next one is that we are willing to yield. So we're able to give up our own desires for the sake of another. Willing to yield. I have to be honest with you. I hear these and I'm convicted. These are hard, right? These are hard to do because in our humanness, we are apt to always go back to self, always. And so it's in a sense, in order to work with the wisdom from above, we have to be intentional about it. And we have to every day decide, I'm going to work on this. I choose my foundation to be wisdom from above. Mercy is another one. Mercy is the ability to be moved by the needs of others. If we can see other people suffering and it doesn't do anything to us, then I would question what wisdom it is that we're following. Because it should always move us in some way to look at how do we have that mercy for others. Wisdom from above has no partiality. God has no partiality. Everyone is invited, everyone is welcome, and when we make our foundation on wisdom from above, we do not show partiality to anyone. We don't judge them. It's also that there is no hypocrisy. No hypocrisy in that we claim to have moral standards, and then people, let me put it this way. If you are walking the walk and talking the talk, right? So what your mouth says is what your body, what your actions say as well. That's what hypocrisy is, when we say something and then we just don't live our lives that way. You know, a lot of times we're just Sunday Christians, right? I go to church on Sunday morning. I'm a regular attender. I'm very active in my church on Sunday morning. But if on Monday through Saturday, your actions do not proclaim that you are a Christian, going to church on Sunday morning will absolutely mean nothing at all. Now notice that the wisdom from above, while wisdom from below, the main feature in that was I, me, my, right? In wisdom from above, what's the main feature? Others, community. It doesn't mean that we're excluded, right? I think sometimes we think that if I do these things, it's to my exclusion. Well, hello, it's not to your exclusion, because if you're doing these things for others, then what are others doing? They're doing them for you as well. So you're never excluded. If we are in true community, we are sharing with one another. It's back and forth. So a bit of that selfishness, I think, is wanting to make sure that we have what everybody else has. Well, you know what? If we're in an honest-to-goodness, God-given community, we are all looking out for each other. And we don't have to be selfish, because somebody else is doing for us what we may be doing for others. The result of wisdom from above is righteousness. Righteousness, the way I define righteousness, I mean, we can say all kinds of things. It's justified, you know, everything's lined up on the right side if you're thinking about typing. But what I think biblical righteousness is a relationship with God. It's a relationship with God. It's where do you turn to when you are most in need. Let's take a look at King David. By our standards, I would think that King David was the most unrighteous person that there was. He was a liar. He was a murderer. Let's be real. King David, he was an adulterer. Don't let me forget that. He was an adulterer as well. By our standards, that is not a righteous man. But by God's standards, he was considered righteous. Why? Because every time David screwed up and learned that he screwed up, what did he do? He returned to God. David knew that God was of heavenly wisdom. David knew that David knew that everything he had came from God. And he always returned to God. So that heavenly wisdom, now let's be real. David was involved in earthly wisdom, right? He was involved in earthly wisdom because he saw Bathsheba, and what did he say? I want her, right? I want her. But when he was confronted with that, when he had Bathsheba's husband murdered, and he was confronted by that, he said, that was not good for the community. And I was wrong. And he returned to God and asked God for forgiveness. So our righteousness is, what kind of wisdom will you follow? And again, I want to say this, that this is every day that we wake up and we say, I am going to once again, I've been doing some mindfulness exercises. And one of the things in mindfulness is you have to have your intention for the day. And an intention is not a goal. It's not a goal because we think that goals have an end, all right? So I could wake up every day and say that my intention is to follow the wisdom from above. And then everything I do that day, hopefully, will fall into that intention. But it makes myself aware of the fact that that's what I intend to do today. And you see, we have to do it every day. We can't just say it one time and say, oh, good, I know it. We say it every day. We put a sticky note up on our calendars. We put sticky notes everywhere in the house to remember what our intention is. Because it is me deciding that I want to follow the wisdom from above, and that's my intention. So every day we must make a choice. We make a choice whether we are going to follow the world's wisdom or whether we are going to follow God's wisdom. And may we daily turn our hearts, may we daily have an intention where our hearts and our minds are so turned toward Jesus so that we can seek the wisdom that comes from God. Amen.